The anti-Mormon guys recognized me and said, "Hey, Meldrum, Rod Meldrum, come over here, come over here." I'm like, "Okay, here we go." And so I walked up, and this guy had this little red wagon, and this wagon basically had a set of gold plates. They weren't gold plates; they were just metal plates. Okay, and he had the rings around them, kind of like these right here. Oh man, I'm telling you, oh my gosh, that gold is so heavy. So they had basically like this. And the guy had rigged him up with the rings here, and he was challenging people to pick up those plates and run with them like old Joe Smith did, right? Well, I'm a pretty good sized guy. I'm 6'3", about 250, okay, and so forth. So I'm like, all right, I'm up to the challenge. Plus, I grew up on a farm, so I was used to bucking hay bales and stuff. so I grab onto this thing and sling it up over my shoulder, and kind of take off, kind of running. And he's going, "Oh, okay." He said, "Well, come back." And so I came back and put him back in this little red wagon. I said, and he said, "Well," he says, "but you're a big guy." And I said, "And so was Joseph Smith." Joseph Smith was a big guy. By the accounts, he was about 6'3". I can tell you, anybody who could actually stick pole like he could stick pole wasn't a skinny guy, which means he was a thick guy, right? Well, anyway, so the guy says, "Well, okay, so you could pick those up and you could carry them and so forth like Joseph Smith did." He says, "But I have one that you can't answer." I said, "Okay, what's that?" He says, "Well, according to the record, your plates, basically the gold plates, were approximately 6 inches by 6 inches by 8 inches, right?" And he says, "and 2/3 of it was sealed, right?" And I go, "Yeah, that's true. So this shows the 2/3 sealed. So about 4 inches of the 6 inches of plates was sealed. And then you had about the 2 inches up at the top." He says, "If there's only 2 inches worth of plates that could actually be accessed, and if those plates were a 1/16 of an inch thick, then you could only get about 16 plates maximum per inch. So you can only get 32 plates, which only gives you 64 surfaces."
1/16 of an inch is way thick.
Okay, yeah, it is. Okay, and I said, "Okay." He said, "So you're telling me that you could get 16 or 500 pages of typeset English on 64 surfaces?" Mm-hmm. And I went, yeah, because I'm not a linguist by any stretch of imagination, but I don't know of any language that is so condensed that ratio would make sense. And so I said, "Well, you're right. I don't have an answer for that right at the moment in time, but I know there's going to be an answer. I just don't know what it is right now." For example, Emma, she had to move the plates around when she was cleaning. She said that they made a metallic rustle when she did that. A couple of other qualifications that had to be thick enough so that it could be written on both sides without bleeding through. If you get it too thin, like foil, if you scribed on one side of it, would bleed through the other side. That wouldn't work.
Or would rip.
Or it could rip, yes. So it has to be thick enough so that they could write on both sides, but thin enough so it would actually be bendable. But he got this piece. This is actually one of the pieces here. This is 12 thousandths of an inch. So it's about about 2.5 times as thick as a piece of paper. But interestingly enough, very flexible, very easy, but actually it's inscribed on this side, and it doesn't bleed through to this side.
Okay.
And so he came to the conclusion that somewhere around 12 thousandths of an inch would be the optimum thickness for a plate to be able to be used to be written on both sides and then be able to actually do this. Okay. Is there any archaeological evidence that people could even make a sheet of metal that thin? And I said, "Well, goodness gracious, I just happen to have this artifact that came from Michigan, and it's made out of copper, and it is a little copper scroll." They said, "Well, how thick is it?" I said, "I don't know. I've never put a micrometer on it, so I don't know." I went to my house and picked up the copper scroll here, and we proceeded to take a micrometer, and we measured. We were able to get 3 measurements on this thing. Every single one of those measurements was 12 thousandths of an inch. Exactly the same size as this. And if you take a look at the edges of this and this, you can kind of see the edge of that, and you see the edge of this. And so let me tell you, folks, if I ever have an opportunity to go back down to Manti, which there won't be because it's now been canceled, But if I ever see any anti-Mormons, and I hope there may be some anti-Mormon or somebody who's having questions about the Book of Mormon is watching this podcast right now, let me tell you how this really comes down. So the bottom line is that now not only do we know about the approximate size or thickness of the plates and what they were, we know that the ancient mound builder people actually had the capability of taking copper and making copper plates of that exact thickness. And we have the actual physical evidence for that. Let's check this out. So if you take this, which is the plates here, and then you take this plate, basically, now how many plates can you fit into 2 inches? Anyway, it basically works out to about 256 surfaces.
Yeah.
So it's about about 125 plates.
In a condensed language.
Yeah. So about 75 plates per inch. And then times 2 inches, and that gives you about 256 surfaces. Now, that is still a condensed language compared to 500 pages of typesetted English, but at least it's in the realm of possibility.